live. And we're live now. It says on Facebook. Hi, everyone. Just like that, we're live. It's Emil and his gong in his closet in front of you. And they always say this. Hey, forget about the kind of murky. Is this camera kind of murky? I put in for a new camera. I'm going to get a new camera. We're going to get something better than this thing. But doesn't it sound good? At least. Anyway, hi everyone. I'm Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. This is our little forum here at the Filipino American National Historical Society Museum, the FANHS Museum in Stockton, California. We're in Stockton, California for a reason. I'm not in Stockton. I'm virtually in Stockton, but the museum is in Stockton because of the founder of FANHS, the co-founder of FANHS, along with his beloved Dorothy, Auntie Dorothy, Uncle Fred Cordova. He was born in Stockton, moved to Seattle, had this idea that he was going to have a museum. He's going to start a society, right? I mean, that was a big thing. He was first going to start a historical society, which he did out of Seattle. And then he said, not only that, we're going to have a museum in our hometown of Stockton, California, because this is where the Filipinos were. The Filipinos came from the Philippines to San Francisco. They said in the 20s, well, we got to make a living. What do we know? We know ag. We're going to go to Stockton, the hub of Filipino American society is what it became. It became the place where Filipinos would come and fan out from there. It was the hub. They would either go on migratory tours of California, up and down the Central Valley, the coast, maybe even up to Seattle and beyond, right? Following the crops all the way to Alaska, and then to work in the canneries. So the fields, the Alascaros in Alaska, that's part of our Filipino American history. Starting, we look usually around 1910, 20, right? 1906, first to Hawaii, Philippines to Hawaii, where they worked the plantations there, and then they came to California. But it really begins around 1898, right? Spanish-American War, which was really a nothing war, which really begat the Philippine-American War. That's the history. That's what we do at the museum. We talk about the history of Filipino Americans. And we talk about it virtually online now because we're closed because of COVID. Oh my goodness. I mean, the COVID charts go like this. My goodness. Or it goes like this. Up, down, up, down. And, we were very cautious at the museum. We went down to red and we thought, okay, purple's the top. Then we got down to red and we thought, okay, we can open with some restrictions. We can limit it to about 10 people or 14, 15 people in the museum gallery at one time. But then we had to train, we had to get our PPE together. We had to make sure that the signage and scheduling was down between volunteers and people who'd want to come and drive to Stockton to see us. And in the back of my mind, I knew that, okay, we're in red now, we can open up, but by time we train, by time we get going, I bet you something's going to happen in the general population that's going to make us say, hey, we can't open now. And sure enough, it did. I mean, San Joaquin County went back to purple. Most of California went back to purple. Today is the beginning of the 10 p.m. curfew. And it's not exactly a lockdown, but it's a kind of semi-lockdown. It's a reminder that, look, we should not be out in public gathering after 10. We should be home. And probably it's wisest if we just stay home, period. Except for emergencies, walking the dog, getting food, getting medicines, getting that kind of thing. But we're locked down. And because of this, because of our Facebook lives, you know, we can talk about our what we talk about in the museum, which is the interpretation of Filipino American history. We talk about it and we interpret it. We tell stories. We tell our personal stories. And then we see things like if you go on our website, you see things like the kind of furniture they had at the campos. What kind of furniture did the workers have when they were working for 10 cents an hour, generally, is what it was, $1 a day. They had furniture, cots, and they had living room furniture that was made out of the slats from boxes that they used when they worked in the packing plants. So all that is represented there, plus some other history, World War II, Filipino contributions in all sorts of industries. It's all there. We can't show you. I mean, we you can't come to the museum and see that, but we can tell you those stories, and that's what we hope to do in these virtual pop-ups. So I'm the museum director. Happy to. It's a volunteer position. Truly a volunteer position. So everything is a labor of love, it seems, when you're Filipino, including talking about our history. So this week in Filipino history, let me begin with something that happened to me this week. Uh, I was talking. Let's see. Let's get our time down. I just want to make sure. Uh, I was talking to some people about Filipino American history, and they said, "Well, why the gong, Emil?" I was talking in my closet because I don't have like a studio for every occasion. I just come to my closet, turn on the lights. Here I am. And I said, the gong is here because Filipinos, this is a Kulintan gong from, you could tell it's from Mindanao because it's got this knob here. If it were from Bontoc, it would be flat, but this is from Mindanao. And I don't bang it so you can just sort of hear it explode in your head when you hear certain things I say about Filipino American history, because I don't want to blow out your speakers or anything like that. I mean, I go amok in different ways, not. And then they said they got it, they understood, and then I was going to show them a picture because a picture really does tell 1,000 stories. Really, it does. Let me go here. I'll share a screen. I don't usually do it. The tech failed me actually, you know, and so that was kind of a drag when the tech failed me, and I couldn't show them this picture, and I still can't show them this picture. So let me show them this picture. Darn, the headings here are kind of impossible. Okay, let me show them this picture. I wanted to show them this picture because this is really Filipino American history. Oh, not a shot of me. This is what I had too. I had this. That is Howard Stern, by the way. I'm on page 453 of that book, Private Parts, which is why it's there. But I don't want to talk about that today. I want to talk about this. This picture here. It's a brochure. Can you see that? It's a brochure of God. Okay, Emil, you need computer lessons. This is a brochure, the Filipino Exposition of the World's Fair in St. Louis in 1904. Can you imagine this? Look, and let me read it. 47 acres, 1,200 natives, 40 different tribes, 6 Philippine villages, 70,000 exhibits, 130 buildings, 725 native soldiers. That means spear chuckers, headhunters, real headhunters. Second only to the World's Fair itself. This was an exposition within the World's Fair, essentially a human zoo showing Filipino Americans looking like this with their headdress, which is why in some of the early videos I did talking about, you know, the Filipino American history and pop-ups, well, COVID meant my hair was long, but boy, I did use that to bow to put my hair back. So I couldn't show them this, but I wanted to share with them how Filipino Americans, well, they were Philippine nationals. 1904, the 1,200 were brought here to sell colonization, to sell the purpose of, or the reason why the Americans fought so hard to defeat the Filipinos in the Filipino American War. They wanted a colony, and they wanted to sell colonization to America. And they did it by bringing the Filipinos here to 1904 and say, see, these Filipinos, they're worth colonizing. They're just like us. And it was a big hit in 1904. And for some, it even brought on the term hot dog, literally, because, of course, the Filipinos ate dog at the exhibit. And in St. Louis, where they were housed when they weren't at the fairgrounds, they stayed at a place called Dogtown. This is our Philippine American history. And I asked the people there, now you know why I have this gong, because the gong was part of the Bontocs had gongs. They were playing the gongs. They had the spears. They wore the headdress. They wore the loincloth. 1,200 Filipinos in a human zoo. Come see them. That was us. And now you know part of the Filipino American history. And he asked this group of people, mostly white, Caucasian Americans, have you ever heard of this story before? Have you ever heard of the story about this exposition that was at the World's Fair? This is the same World's Fair as the Judy Garland Meet Me in St. Louis Fair. Remember, I mean, some of you who are old enough to remember that movie, I think it's been colorized. Judy Garland, right? Meet me in St. Louis, Louis, meet me at the fair. And what about the Filipinos? I guess dog meet me at the fair. So I asked them if they ever heard of it. None of them. None of them had. It's a blank spot in their life, a blank spot in their intellectual life, in their emotional life, in their historical, social sense of America, of social sense of what this country has done. They had no clue. But they understood when they saw that, they said, oh, I see why you have the gong now. I get it, Emil. And I always thought this was the story for me, right? My father was born still unborn. He was in the Philippines, up in Ilocos, born in 1906. So this is in 1904. This was his precursor. This was the introduction of America to Filipinos. Come to the World's Fair. See them eat dog. See them with their spears. See them with their headdress. And my father would be born 2 years later, 1906. And he would say, oh, I got to go to America where there's opportunity for me. And it took him a while, It took him till 1928 to arrive, but he was 22 years old by then. And when he got there, he was dressed in a suit and had his bag. Did not look like this, but this was the first impression of the Filipino American, 1904. And by 1928, by the time my father arrived, it had not changed by much. So I wanted to show this brochure because, as I said, it kind of marks Filipino American history for us. And it's it's important. It's important to understand this, right? This frames our existence. It frames our story. And in fact, some of the people who were part of the troop, the 1200, became big stars because after 1904 they traveled the world. They I've done some historical research, some of my associates, and we have uncovered. Let me show you this one thing that we found. It's interesting. They actually went to oh, I can't find it here. Oh yeah, they actually went to Liverpool, England. Oh no, let me find it here. I have it right here. Look at this. They actually, a group of them went to Liverpool in October 20th, 1916. They traveled the world to show the Filipino. And these are Philippine national or American nationals, right? Because they were all brought over as colonized Americans. And so here you see, am I sharing this with you? I should be sharing this with you. Oh, I guess I have to share. Oh, here it is. Here it is. There it is. Here's the manifest. October 25th, 1916. They left New York. They went to Liverpool, England, right? And here's the group of Filipinos. Born in the Philippines, they went on this traveling show. From 1904, the World's Fair, they went to Coney Island in New York. They were a big hit in New York, and they continued to go to to Europe, in this case Liverpool, and show off their Filipino-ness. They were a roadshow, a display. So it was big biz. This was showbiz. This was Filipinos in showbiz. In some respects, the Filipinos in the World's Fair, when they went to Coney Island, they drew crowds that were bigger than the crowds in on Broadway. In some, so that's a story about the first Filipinos in showbiz, and I use this to transition to it's Thanksgiving, coming up to Thanksgiving, and this week celebrates the 5th year. If we're going to talk about this week in Filipino history, this commemorates what is the term? It's 5 years after the initial airing of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend's Filipino Thanksgiving show. Now, I mention this because in juxtaposition with the World's Fair, because people don't know that story. people from FANHS know that one of the FANHS biennial conferences was in St. Louis, where they talked about that story. They talked about the World's Fair. But in general, most people don't know. They don't know that story. And furthermore, they don't know how it became a traveling show and became a part of Filipino showbiz. It was Filipino show business. But it wasn't until 5 years ago, 2015, because of Rachel Bloom and her co-creator, Eileen Bosch McKenna, that they created Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. And the key storyline was the crazy ex-girlfriend, Rachel Bloom, is the the actress, writer. Her character discovers a boy when she was in camp that she fell in love with, a Filipino. And as she grew up, she developed this sentimental crush for him and realized she was in love and followed him to West Covina, California, home of many, many, many Filipino Americans, as you know. And so, as the story goes, she ingratiates herself or re-ingratiates herself with Josh Chan. That's the name of the character. And Rachel becomes a part of the family on Thanksgiving at a Filipino Thanksgiving. And I remember seeing it in 2015, just being floored by it. I mean, we're going to see Filipinos on Thanksgiving on TV. Okay, CW, but still, it's on TV. And Rachel Bloom won, I think, the Golden Globe that year for her, just for her portrayal. The show got some acclaim, and I remember writing at the time. I was writing for NBC News Asian America, and I I didn't write about that, but there was, we had something on that. I didn't realize, because I was into news and other things, and I wasn't covering that side. But ultimately, I did speak to Vincent Rodriguez III, and I'm going to talk to him, or I'm not talk to him. I'm going to tell you about that story tomorrow. But Filipino Thanksgiving, it's we're coming up to that time, and I hope you're safe. I know it's going to be tough. You're gonna say to yourself, "Oh, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to share our food if all we do is share a Zoom screen?" And it's going to be hard, but we can do it. We can. I mean, you'll probably eat less, right? Because you'll make less food and you'll eat just your food, and you'll maybe do kamayan, and you'll lift up a toast, and you won't spend as much time. Maybe you could play charades. It's going to be a different Thanksgiving, but I hope you. I hope that you spend, or you take the care to minimize risk, and not be so bahala na, come what may. I'm going to do it. If God wanted me to die, He's going to make me die. Uh, don't go that way. Go with the science. Go with the stats. Go with what's going on. Make sure people are tested if you get together. Make sure that you don't do something that maximizes the risk, because this is a real thing. We know it's a real thing. Filipino Americans are on the front lines fighting it as nurses. Let's take it seriously and minimize the risk. Okay. And I mentioned the crazy ex-girlfriend thing because just maybe, let me go to my, let me share my screen again. Because maybe you can, oh, this is the manifest. But maybe if you go to, let's see here, go to YouTube. If you go to YouTube You can buy the episode. It's not that expensive. It's a $1.99 for SD, $2.99 for HD. It's available online though. I think it's on. I'm not. We don't get a share of any of this, but I think it's kind of interesting that this was the first time I saw Dinuguan mentioned on national television. Think about that. I mean, I'm a vegan now, and I shouldn't even be proud of Dinuguan. I should be saying, hey, thank goodness that we don't even think about Dinuguan anymore. Chocolate meat. But I I was bursting with pride to see someone's talking about chocolate meat. What's next? Crispy pata? Are they going to talk? So, anyway, this let me show you this. This is Rachel Bloom here, crazy ex-girlfriend. This is the confrontation between the girlfriend of Josh Chan, the somewhat more, I don't want to say more attractive, but the more traditionally uh, fetching woman, say. Yeah, she just has that kind of look versus uh, Rachel, whose best attributes are that she has an SAT of 1500, went to Harvard undergrad, Yale Law School, and was mock trial champion, according to the script. And of course, that actually pleased the Filipino parent to no end. Oh, my son's going out with the Harvard girl. You catch the drift. It's funny, and this is Amy Hill, and just as a bit of inspired casting, Amy Hill is Japanese American, I think, primarily, and but she's got the Filipino thing down, and I've texted and communicated with Amy. I've known her for some time over the years. Really a great Asian American actress. And in this, I was proud to say she was a Filipino parent. She had that down. For the Filipino parent at the grocery store, to the Filipino parent in the kitchen, to the Filipino parent doting over the Harvard undergrad, Yale Law, 1500 SAT, mock trial champion, preferring this girl to that girl, despite what her son Josh might think. That's part of the drama or the comedy. But you'll like it. You'll like what Dinuguan does to a person. You'll like what Dinuguan does to a nationally televised prime time sitcom. And Renee Gube was the executive editor or executive producer of this Filipino American improv guy. So, and he sometimes plays the priest in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. So this was a very, very Filipino show for a primetime show, historical. And now we have, of course, um, uh, our Nico, right? Our friend on Superstore, and he plays, he plays the, as they say, the friendly bakla, and there are all sorts of Filipino story bits that come up. I mean, they're because they involve him, and he always involves his Filipino-ness in the scripts. So there's still bits. There's still Filipino bits throughout network television that you can see. But Crazy Ex-Girlfriend led the way. 2015, November 2015, the first Thanksgiving on network TV. I suggest if you get together with your friends on Thanksgiving, Filipino Americans, celebrate this. Say, we have come a long way from the 1904 World's Fair to the 2015 Crazy Ex-Girlfriend episode featuring a Filipino Thanksgiving with Dinuguan. That's a long way. No dog was consumed. They do talk about Dinuguan a lot, though. And it's funny. It's funny, 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 funny. So catch that. Just a suggestion for your Thanksgiving. And tomorrow I'll talk a little more about Crazy Ex-Girlfriend from the Josh Chan perspective. Josh Chan, played by Vincent Rodriguez III. I'll talk about him, my interview with him, and what I wrote back then. That would be tomorrow on our virtual pop-up. I want to close with a couple important notes. DACA. You may have missed this. Let me stop the share. You may have missed this from the past weekend because of all the noise about elections and COVID-19 and what's happening. And, this is a big travel time. So a lot of people are just in transit. Maybe they're just you should just be in transit from your living room or your bedroom to your kitchen and back. I really think we should stay put. Black Friday or, all the shopping and the holiday things. Well, judiciously, masked up, please be careful. But so all the news has been sort of taken up by all these other forces, coronavirus, the election, the count still, we have election month. And I really think that Filipino Americans, 61% still voted for Biden. More Filipinos. The second highest total, though, was I think the 40% who voted for Trump. It was the second highest Asian American group. The first was Vietnamese. But they're trying to certify the election. Where we are now is that Michigan says they will certify. Georgia has certified, despite a recount that, in spite of a recount that looks like maybe, no, Trump challenged. There was a recount, and he lost. Michigan, the representatives, the legislators were invited to the White House. Apparently, it didn't work. So that's the headline today. There will be more challenges, but just today in the Wall Street Journal, which is not a liberal publication, but a very conservative one, the writing's on the wall. There are establishment Republicans who are saying he lost. It's not a hoax. It's not a theft. The election was not rigged. Trump lost. So that's the reality. One of the things that happens is between now and the inaugural January 20th is all sorts of things can happen, and he can do things out of vengeance. The president. One of the things that he's done throughout his tenure. Excuse me. One of the things he did throughout his tenure was that he appointed a Department of Homeland Security chief improperly. He's an acting Department of Homeland Security chief, and he issued some restrictions on DACA, the Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals. So if you are undocumented or if you were not properly documented, but your parents brought you here and you're eligible, the restrictions that were put on as of the summer and over the past few years, limiting the program, essentially dismembering it, are illegal. They were not properly imposed on DACA, so therefore they're illegal. They don't count. DACA has been restored by a judge. This was a determination by a federal judge because he said that not only were all these impositions illegal, unfounded, not proper, but the appointment of the Department of Homeland Security chief was improper. So everything he did was illegal, not proper. So we have the prospects now that the Department of Homeland Security chief and all his policy changes are illegal, more illegal than any immigrant who's in the DACA program now, which is a kind of an ironic thing. But this is what happens when you try to do things by these executive orders and you do them improperly. So this happened a week ago on a Saturday. You may not have heard about it, but as of last week, because of the court decision, if you were thinking about DACA, the Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals, that protection, and if you stop thinking about it because I'm not eligible, I won't be eligible, it's no good. You're eligible now. Call your call the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. You can do that. Call an immigration lawyer. DACA is open. DACA has been restored. And as I said, it may keep you shielded, or it may enable you to sign up now and be shielded from all the things that are coming down the pike immigration wise. Uh, Now here's the thing that has been true. Filipinos are more eligible for DACA than we know, than the numbers that have signed up. They haven't signed up because you tell me, is it a matter of trust? Is it a matter of you just don't want anyone to know and you want to just keep things quiet? The extension of the TNT mentality, tago ng tago, right? But if you are eligible or know someone who is, now is the time. Now is the time to go forward and apply for DACA. And, DACA gives you protections. And maybe under a new administration, DACA will become the thing that President Obama wanted when he put it together. Remember, DACA was part of a thing for the children. DAPA was for the parents, but DAPA ended up getting nixed, unfortunately. But DACA is still around. DACA has been kicked around by the Republicans and the Trump administration. But now a judge says DACA has been restored. If you're eligible, you can apply. And if you apply, keep in mind with the new administration, probably all the promises of DACA and will come to pass. I know it's still a political thing, but at least the doors are open now. So that's something worth thinking about. And as I said, it's true. Filipinos are more eligible than not. It's just that Filipinos have not applied. That has always been the case. It shouldn't be the case. If it's afforded to you and you're eligible, think about it and call an immigration attorney or call a community organization like the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, which is in New York. But there are other Asian American legal groups around wherever you are. And if you call ALDEF in New York, they can advise you where to get help. It's important. It could be one of the silver linings coming out of this next 60 days, right? Before the inaugural. But you never know what's going to happen because the president, as he goes out, can do just about anything to, I don't know, people are wondering how much of a vengeance is he going to have? Is he throwing a tantrum? We don't know. But let's hope that the president, I was reading Peggy Noonan's column in the Wall Street Journal today, and she said, she's as conservative as it gets. Although I did criticize her for saying she wasn't going to vote, she was going to abstain. And if you abstain from the election, well, doesn't that take away your right to talk about it or criticize it? Just if you're going to abstain and not vote, just look and observe. But she's saying now uh, she was always hoping that Republicans come forward and say, look, this is a travesty what's going on with good people, Republicans, not accepting the election. That it's real, that it was true. And that the only thing that happens by all the challenges and show the evidence if there was something wrong with the election. Otherwise, this is this is very damaging to American democracy. That's really the bottom line. And American democracy is what Filipino Americans came here for in the first place, right? So we talked about DACA now. We talked about Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. We talked about Thanksgiving. Uh, we talked about the first Filipino showbiz stars, 1904, World's Fair. That's our history. So I hope in today's pop-up you got a little something. Let's see. I don't have my setup. I should have my setup better so that I can see exactly where or what. Uh, if you're saying anything in the chat box. If you're saying something in the chat box, I will get to it afterwards. I apologize. But tomorrow I'll be back. I'll talk about Vincent Rodriguez III. I'll talk more about Thanksgiving. Oh, and I'll also talk about something about the Celine story. Something happened last week. I'll talk about that tomorrow. In the meantime, check out on our Facebook live page and also on our YouTube channel. But if you go to FANHS at Facebook at FANHS FANHS Museum, go to our live page. So it's at FANHS Museum /live, and then you'll see all the videos. Go to the one where we do the Celine webinar, which took place at the end of October, and you'll see the story of Celine. I'll update you on that tomorrow. Okay. So tomorrow also, I will thank all the people who contributed to my Facebook fundraiser, my birthday fundraiser. We raised about $1,400, or just a little over 1,300. Thank you very much. You know, one of the reasons why we're doing this pop up now is because we are we're virtual. We were closed down because of COVID. We're cut off from the people who would come see what we have. Cut off from people who would see us. You know, tell stories about the things our historical artifacts, our historical story, and cut off from their donations. Cut off from their, it's free to go to the museum, and we ask for your donations. We're a 501c3, and all we have now are these pop-ups and our Facebook donations. And I want to I'll thank the people who gave to mine, but every month we have a different member of our museum team do one of these. And it's really very gratifying to see people some who know the museum, some who just heard about the museum for the first time, some who are just friends and family members who are sympathetic and want to help. Very gratifying to see that. I'll talk about them tomorrow, but you can find that on my Emil Guillermo Facebook page. Uh, you can also, I'll talk more about fundraising tomorrow, but it's a big deal because this is the way we do the museum now, because we can't be open, and yet the landlords haven't figured out a new way to be landlords, and nor has PG&E found a new way to be PG&E, and the bill keeps coming every month. So we pay our bills like good citizens, and we say, how can we offset that? and our fundraising is away. We've got Giving Tuesday coming up. We've got a big Christmas December coming up. Please remember the museum. And remember, it's a 501c3, fully tax deductible donation. And we really appreciate it that you think of us and that you are willing to be our hero, to come help us tell the Filipino American story. All right. So back tomorrow with more. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll answer your things in chat if you have any questions. My name is Emil Guillermo. You can email me at emilamok, EMILAMOK, at gmail.com. That's EMILAMOK at gmail.com. Thanks again. And as my old friend, the late Professor Don Mabalan would say, Mahals and Salamats.